All right. Here is, I was going to do it with, I was going to go on the stream. Here we go. So this is what you would have gotten on your Google Classroom stream. Okay, I explained how we're going to do a little different this time. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as I describe this, 3 more minutes, I'm going to point to you, and each of you give an example of a person. It might be you, grandma, mother, whatever, who's like Athena, and then explain why. And you get 1.5 minutes. Sorry. Then we're going to do round 2, a poem or an essay, or else your reaction to that second chapter where I had essays and poems. And again, 2 rounds of that. Then we'll get into groups. In your groups, I want you to think about something somebody else said that you want to tell them you really liked what they said, or you want to ask them another question about what they said. Or if you still have time, you can bring in your second examples. Okay, now that's the plan. So let's start. I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, but I don't know if we have the same screens. But okay, Elizabeth, go. This is a person that follows the Athena archetype.
All right. So a person that I thought kind of follows the Athena archetype is actually Ivanka Trump, because she's always been like very, very closely working with her father through his whole entire political campaign and his presidency. And she does a whole lot. Like, she's considered a very like strong woman, and she's very smart, and she's like prominent in the world. She's doing all this stuff, but she does it all under her father, like in relation to her father, and she supports him. So that would be my example.
She defends the patriarchy too, incidentally.
Yes, she does.
Okay, Sam, since you're there.
Okay, so for my person, I decided to do Alice Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's first daughter.
Okay.
She was called the White House Wild Child. And she was very strong, a very independent woman. Now, I wouldn't say that she was considered politically conservative in any way, because she was part of the sexual revolution of the early 20th century. But she definitely had issues with Roosevelt's wife, Meredith Caro, I don't know her name. And that caused her to do a lot of the rule breaking that she did. She was very much a rule breaker, but her dad and her were still very close, and he was always very proud of her. There's his famous quote where he's like, "I can be the president of the United States, or I can handle my daughter. I can't do both." And so I really liked her as an example, because she was, strong and independent, and she made changes, but she was still really close to her father. So, and I really liked her as an example.
Sounds good. Okay, Poppy. Did you have one? You can just pass. You can say, I pass for now, okay, if you want to. Okay, I'm just good. Yeah.
Professor, today I don't want to participate. I will.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll just move on. It doesn't matter. Don't want to stigmatize you. There's a million reasons. Okay. Madeline, I'm sure, is passing, I assume. Claire.
I chose Malala. I have trouble saying her last name. But I chose her because you soft sigh or however you say it. I'm butchering it badly, but I chose her because I studied her in high school and really loved reading about all the things she did. She's so young and definitely is very purposeful with everything she does in her activism for female education. So I thought that she was a perfect fit for it. And she, even in terrible situations, she keeps her head, she never falters hardly. So I definitely think she's a good fit.
Actually, a lot of AUW students have used her before.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else has already, Claire stole their idea. But anyway, Jareen, what you got?
I would like to pass for now.
Okay. What about May?
Professor, can you hear me properly?
Yep.
Okay, so when I think of Athena archetype, I think of one woman from my country. Like she is a filmmaker and a film director and filmmaker. Her name is Ngô Thanh Vân. Like she actually in the film industry in my country, there are not so many like female director and filmmaker. I think that almost all of them are men. But Ngô Thanh Vân is a high achiever. Like she has a lot of like passion and she's very ambitious. She wants to renovate like the whole film industry in Vietnam, and she wants to bring our like film into the world, kind of like that. And she has made kind of like many films in the whole like 10 years, and she even want to bring back the Vietnamese fairy tale and cosmic, like which many people forget, into the modern film. And for many friends I have, she is a real like inspiration for them to follow art, and also um, to follow the filmmaking like career, even when not so many women in my country do that. So I think that she is a real example of a female high achiever. She is smart and ambitious and also very wise. So yeah, that's my example.
Well, actually, the fairy tale thing, fairy tales are archetypes, right?
Yeah.
And so she is the fairy tale thing. She's trying to educate women in exactly the way that.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you want to type her name into the chat? And so we don't.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I will type it.
Okay, so Louis, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
Yes, it's nice pronunciation. Actually, in my example, since I was born, I have not been aware of a lot of women who get higher education or have a chance to show up her knowledge. But I think I can think of an example of my friend high school. She's a monitor of my class, and I think somewhat he related to Athena. Um, During the time with her in high school, she's only mentioned about her father in our conversation. Her father is a party secretary of our city, and she only like intended to make friend with one who have parent with high position or high status in society, and she usually criticize other women in her family who cannot make the money. um she is one of the most clever girl in our class. She devoted most of the time to an effort to study to get a first rank in her class. And I think the dark side of her is like every time the teacher released the grade, she seemed to annoy with other who get higher grade than her. So as a result, like some students feel kind of depressed. We be friend with her. That's why she didn't have any best friend during high school. But apart from score grade and that kind of stuff, she arranged activities in our class very largely. So any problem very quickly and clearly. So that's why I think she's one of example have a characteristic related to Athena. So yeah, that's in my example.
Okay, very good. Okay, Rupiah. Are you there, Rupiah? Okay, I'll just keep going.
Yes, Professor. I'm
Go
here.
ahead. Did you have an example?
No, right now. I don't have any example right now.
Okay, just say pass and we'll move on because we gotta, okay, Nusrat.
I will pass for now.
Do you have one, Nusrat?
I will pass for now.
Okay. Lakin.
Hi. So I think one of my older sisters possesses a lot of Athena qualities. Like she's very strong and like business oriented. And so like she has passions like cooking. And so she kind of turned that into a business and like with all of her kitchen things. So like she sells Tupperware now, but yeah, she reminded me of Athena.
Okay. Who's after Lakin? Azbina?
Yes, Professor.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Professor?
Yep.
Okay, Professor, I want to give an example of my own friend. She's also from UW, so I actually won't call her name. Everyone knows her. Um, she's also very hardworking. Actually has a lot of quality that Athena has. She's a very hardworking woman. She does everything, volunteering, like feminist and all. But she have told me many times that she doesn't like her mother. Her mother is a very independent woman. She's a professor in a university, so I think she has been like growing up like alone in the house without her mother. So she told me that she doesn't like her mother. She likes only her father. Even in conversation, she always talks about her father. Like she decides every her decisions with her only her father. She doesn't tell her mother, and she talks about her assignments and everything with only father. Even something happens between their parents, she always supports her father, not her mother. So she thinks that her mother is like purposely not giving her time. uh, but her father is also her father also has a job, but he is giving her time. He is spending quality time with her every time when it's possible. So she is an example of for me.
You want to type her name into the chat too. Yeah, there's a lot of Athena and Artemis type women at AUW, especially in the administration. Especially Professor Cohn. Professor Cohn is introverted. It's amazing. But anyway, okay, Fahim, what do you got? You got something, Fahima? Okay, how about Untari? Okay, she's gonna pass, okay. What about, yeah, I thought you all would be able to follow it because you came up with your examples of Artemis, so, okay, what about Rossi?
Hi, Professor. So today I want to share about a Cambodian female who I thought possesses a lot of Athena archetype, and her name is Ning Sawantana, but we know her here as DJ Nana, and she is an outspoken radio DJ and TV host, and she is a high achiever in my opinion because she does many social work related to promoting women's rights and giving them a platform to talk about their issues or like social injustice and help them to gain justice through sharing their ideas. And she follows a lot of her father's footsteps and help her father in his human rights work in an NGO, as an NGO defender. And she is involved in politics as a youth secretary for Cambodian National Rescue Party, which is one of the two leading parties in Cambodia. And also, I think she is an efficient manager where she tackled her freelance job as an MC, advertiser, and interpreter and event organizer, and also managing her newborn because she is like 34 now and she just had a baby. And I'm really surprised with how she shared her tactics in tackling her time and sharing most of her time to her baby while doing her job too.
Good. Sounds good. That's what we're looking for. Okay, Jana Tool. Did you come up with something?
Yes, Professor.
Okay.
Uh, I have one of my cousin. She did marriage very early because of her parents, and but he didn't stop her education. She has four children, but she's very focused on her career. But her husband and her grandlaw are not support her to do education, but still she is doing all the houseworking, take care of child, and also she continue her study, and she's doing very good result. So I think for me she is very focused, which is related in Artemis. Uh,
You could actually figure out if it's more Artemis or more Athena, because we did Athena for today. They're similar, right? They're both independent. They're both very focused. Artemis tends to focus on animals, nature,
yeah,
and sports. And Athena tends to want to start organizations and focus on legal issues and institutions. But so does your cousin want to start an organization, or does she, do you know what her goal of her education is, or what kind of career she wants?
she want to do job, and she want more independent, because of that she choose education. She think that education can can be help to independent her.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the means to the end, but does she want a career in business, or does she want a career in, that would be
Yeah,
the difference.
she want to do a job.
In business?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that would be more like Athena then, because Artemis is, likes the wilderness. She's more critical of the city, right? The culture, whereas Athena will defend the culture.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though. Okay, Nahida, what have you got?
Professor, actually I know my cousin, her name is Ferdos, and she's Bangladesh, from Bangladesh. Actually she joined in Bangladesh Archery Federation from her ninth grade. So as we are in a patriarchal family, she got forced to get married in an early age, and she got a lot of barriers from her family and not to join in archery. But she was very positive, and she didn't she was against her family, and she did join in archery and traveled in different countries and earning medals for her strong mentality and river practice. So she's earning, not only she's earning medals, and she's strongly very mentally very strong. So I find her as a beautiful warrior, protector of the cities. Actually, her strong mentality is just not, she's only not only giving me as a, she's not only giving me experience, making me experienced, other girls are also getting very interested to see her enthusiasm. Actually she's just thinking about our own country, so that she can do anything, like archer is like a protecting, through this activities she's learning. As I talked with her, she's talking about that she want to do institutions where women can learn and about their self protection. Actually it's a part of protecting own country. So I appreciate her. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Kajiha. Kajiha, you got something?
Yeah, or are you saying my name?
Yes.
Okay. I want to share a story of my friends who I was at school with her. She was very competitive. She was always trying to the best, and she was very close to her father because she didn't had a good relationship with her mother. She was saying that my mother is weak, and I don't like be like her, because I want to be a leader, and I want to organize some program. And also she was very good at organizing a program and managing program in the school, and she always trying to be organizer. And also she wanted to study abroad, but her mother was saying that no, you cannot go to abroad and you cannot get scholarship. But her father was always supporting her. No, you can do like a boy can everything. And because of that, she got scholarship, and now she is studying in US. And she had the organization, she have organization in Afghanistan, and it is supporting the other girls, and she helped a lot with other girls in Afghanistan. I think she is very strong woman, and she is very competitive, and she want to become independent, not dependent to other people. I think she is Athena type girls.
Yes, sounds very good. This is why I want to write the book, because you are making history, okay? You really are. You're just carving out all this new reality. So the book is going to be describing that reality. So that's what I want to do. We can do it together. Okay, but anyway. So the second round is about that second chapter. You can react to something that I have in that chapter, or else you can bring your own, right? Poem or essay, some work of art, right? And I had that long list of let me just summarize some of the themes that I had picked out. There was Marilyn Fry was about the bird cage, right? Oppression. You just think, people say, oh, just fly past it. And then you look around and it's so much. It's systematic. And then there were some excerpts about the father-daughter bond. Do you remember that? It gets wounded and how it can heal. And it sounds like, the father-daughter bond is a big deal. And with Athena, it's positive generally. And then, Adler talks about we are actually creatures where we envision a future. And that's what I want you to, right? You're all on board with that. The future is not going to be the same as the past. Then there was, Gilman talked about how no other species has the female so entirely dependent on the male for her economic, right? Her survival. So that kind of dependency is psychologically pretty unhealthy. Then the next excerpts were about the need to educate women's reason, because without reason, you can't have self-control, you can't have virtue, you can't really achieve, you can't activate all your higher capacities. Then there was logic is disembodied male minds, that men can get totally detached from people. And that's not healthy, but it's rewarded by the educational system. Then there was some quotes about male identified women, by women against women, then sociology and psychology and how they're biased. So you can think about this when you take a sociology course or a psychology course or a logic course. You can think about what would some of these women say about what you're reading or about the method, the kind of thinking you're asked to participate in, and you get rewarded for. And then the last couple quotes are about social justice and the arts. And I will read that to you hopefully at the end of the class. But anyway, so now we're going to have round 2. Elizabeth, did you come up with something of your own or react to something in the chapter?
I was going to react to something in the chapter.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about Simone de Beauvoir. On the Athena quotes reading that you posted, it mentions that she wrote memoirs of a dutiful daughter, and it talks about how she was always very independent. She wasn't really close to either of her parents. And then later on, she talks about getting into philosophy, which is a very male-dominated field, and she talks about how nobody wanted, her family didn't want her to go into philosophy. But I have actually read some of her works, and they are very, very pro-female. She's basically paving the way, rethinking the whole field of philosophy to include women. So she's very independent. She's very strong-willed, and she's very smart. She's pretty much an Athenian woman.
Oh yeah, she wrote The Second Sex, right?
That's what I've read.
Boy, but her father really did a job on her, right?
Yeah.
Wounding her, that was terrible.
So it's not so much that she's identified with her father, I guess, is that her father helped shape her, though.
Yeah,
and that's part
right.
of why she is an Athenian woman, is because of the impact that her father's had on her.
Well, her books are about justice too.
They are.
Justice. Yeah, and then she had this relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre, and toward the end, she was an enabler. He was like an alcoholic and a womanizer by the end, which is really sad. But anyway, no, Simone, that's great. What about you, Sam?
So also going from the Athena quotes, wait, I wrote it down. I fell in love with the section about the personal father versus the internal father.
Okay.
And I found that to be really interesting because in my personal experience, I can say that there are two. I have my dad, and I see him as his own person. He's still my father, but he's his own person. He has a drive to work and provide for the family and to protect us and stuff. But when I was younger, and until recently, I always had an internal father that was considered judgmental. He was always making sure I was doing the right thing, which is where I think the whole Athenian idea of being shaped by your father comes in, because anytime I wanted to do something stupid, I could hear his voice being like, Sam, that's really dumb. Don't do that. Now that I'm a little older, I can say that it's kind of gone away. He's still there. I guess the internal father is still there, but he's not judging me as much. And I'm not so afraid to go against what he says is right and wrong. I'm becoming my own person. I still follow in some things that he said, but a lot of it's my own thing and stuff. But I do think it's really weird because my father has never been strict or cruel with me. And most women, Athenian women can probably say the same thing, that their father's never really been strict or cruel. But your internal father that that women manifest is almost usually way more strict and cruel than their actual father is. And so I think it's really weird that somehow we went from our actual father, who's caring and maybe overprotective, but still caring and nice and everything, to this really strict, cruel voice that's you're an idiot, don't do that. And then I think as you get older and you become more of your own independent person, that kind of fades away a little bit. But I really like that whole idea, because it's something that I've always thought about, like, I always knew kind of, but it was never put into words. And so when I read it, I was like, ah, that's what that is. That's why
Again,
sometimes when I want to do something
that's
stupid.
what those archetypes are, actually, right? Do you have a father in your mind that's like Zeus, right? Or like whatever. That's important. And also the desire to please, right? Little girls want to please their daddy, and that's where you get that internal, right?
Yeah.
Very different from the actual dad. It's just that you have this incredible desire to please him.
Mhm.
And yeah, another point about that, though, that it's important to read these because what I'm saying about women diss women, right? That's a terrible problem of women competing against women or criticizing women. And so now you can see how this happens, right?
Yeah.
Artemis criticizes women who aren't assertive enough and, you know, want her causes enough, right? And Athena types criticize their moms or anybody who seems too soft, right? And that's so harmful to women. So that's why it's very important to me that we find these different archetypes and we make sure to affirm every type, right? The sisterhood involves all types, and we get over that horrible patriarchy, the way it pits women against each other so terribly. So
It's also weird because sometimes if you see what society would consider a wild female, you know, dressing very seductively out on the streets or whatever society wants to say it, sometimes you'll hear people say, you know, her father didn't raise her well. My father would never let me leave the house like that. You know, you hear comments like that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the whole internal father thing. So,
oh yeah, oh definitely. Definitely. I mean, you should be able to tell that I've had a lot of trouble with the father telling me you got to do more, you got to save the world, right?
yeah.
It was hard. Okay, Poppy, if you want to say anything. Okay, you don't have to.
Yes, Professor. In my life, my father is my role model because my father always helped me to get educated person. So he always support me uh, when I feel like any when I need any help, and I always share with her, and he always help me. So really, in my life, my father is my role model.
Good. So you can write in your post about that. And then also you can read about how those, like Simone de Beauvoir's father crippled her, right? And you can say, that would have been horrible. My father doesn't do that. Or I do get impatient with my mother, or whatever. It's about you, right? So as long as you can write as much as you want and sort out, you know, how you compare to this archetype. Is that okay, Poppy?
Yes, Professor.
Good. Madeline, you have anything that comes to mind without reading anything?
I don't think so.
That's
I mean, I kind of relate to some of the stuff they said about the father because, I mean, growing up, I always listened. Like my father was always a great man, but you know, you still. I guess I kind of agree with the internal father. You still have that father in your head telling you what to do.
right. Okay, good. Claire.
I was going to talk about one of the things in the book. It's the women's economic vulnerability under patriarchy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my business major coming out a little bit, but I thought that it was neat how it said that we're the only species basically that doesn't just solely depend on a man. I think that definitely speaks for itself in everything we're talking about. And I thought that the part that says, let's see, sorry, these things bear relation only to the man she marries, the man she depends on, to how much he has and how much he's willing to give her. I thought that how much he's willing to give her was just kind of sad, honestly. So that's one that really jumped out at me.
the other thing about that, Claire, is that only human beings have babies who are way, way premature because their head gets too big. And so literally it takes like 15 years. So when you have that, where you have this kid that depends on you 15 years, and that's why you have to depend on this man. So our species is just completely unique in that respect. And the reason is because our brains are too big, right? In other words, we're going to have to live with our brains, but it leads to this long-term dependency and then the dependence of women on men economically. So it's kind of, it's conflicted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Jareen, what you got? You have anything, Jareen?
Not yet, Professor.
Okay. What about you, May?
I think that I am also impressed by the part of Athena, the father and daughter relationship in the context of patriarchy, which some of the classes also said before. I think that in many books you cited in the text like the wounded woman or the hero's daughter. I think the authors made an made an impression on me when talk about the kind of the father daughter wound, kind of like that. um and from that I can understand that for me and many people around me, like we were like even consciously or subconsciously affected by our father, but I didn't like know about it before, like I was not aware about it. I also think that like for many characteristics and expectations I have for myself now, I was like influenced a lot by my father's expectation and like image of like what girls should be, kind of like that, and even some of the unhealthy expectation as well. But I also read in the text in one part like I think it's Maureen Murlock in Hero's Daughter, like he said that like even the pains and the wounds from father daughter can be healed, and we can like change from the old habits to something healthier and develop like better like relationship with ourselves. And I think that I also can do that, and I also think that people, if we are aware of that, we also can like change what is unhealthy for us to something better, rather than just like being the victim of like the expectation and all of the unhealthy things for life. I think so. So that's what impressed me the most during the text.
So there's two things. You can't heal the wound if you don't think it's a wound, right? If you're not aware of it. And then if you don't think there's anything wrong with it. So it's really important to know, you know, this is a wound that needs healing. And then the other thing is the best way is for women to bond with each other and affirm each other, right? And then you can get over that internalized father. You know, you can figure out, right, on your own what's legit and what's not, but it's not just because your dad says so, right? But it does think it takes conversation with other women to give you perspective, not with other men.
Yeah, I see. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, Louis.
Yes, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. In this part, I bring up the example of the upper female. It's not a work of art about Artemis archetype, but the woman who write the book have an archetype. She is Trang Nguyen, founder and CEO of Wild Ark organization, which protected wild animal in Africa and Asia. She the youngest woman conversationalist in Vietnam. She developed the love for animal and a way of protecting wildlife when she was 8 years old from reading a book. So, seen in Vietnam society norm, conversationalist is very rare and is not a word for woman. So her parent prevent her from doing any volunteer work or join any organization and keep her and lock her in the house. But she didn't give up. Like she planned everything very clearly and carefully. And in high school, she get a scholarship to learn animal conservation at Cambridge University. And after graduate, she found white art, worked with other conversationists in South Africa and Asia. Then she write two books. One is about educate children about protecting wildlife, and second is about empower women in conversation work, taking action to end this gender violation against female conversationists in Vietnam. I remember she wrote in her book that don't depend on the leader. Let become the leader and do it by yourself. So she's a kind of woman very encouraged me. Yeah, that's
Good.
my example.
Yeah, that's if I were ever to publish this book again, I would have a third chapter, right, with all of your examples, because my examples are almost all Western women. So I apologize for that, but these are all really good. What about Rupiah? Do you have anything?
Yes, Professor.
Good.
I have no best friend since my childhood. My father is my best friend. I can share my happiness, my joys, or anything with my father. Am I audible, May? Professor, can you hear me properly?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah. Since my childhood, my father is my partner of everything. If I wanted to travel anywhere, my father took me there till my married life.
Okay. Is your mother on board with this? How does that, you could compare yourself to the healthy father-daughter relationship, and the healthy mother-daughter relationship or anything like that if you want to. That's good, Rupiah.
If I can compare it.
Okay, News Rock.
Yes, Professor. Yeah, I would like to comment on the quotes you shared. So from there, I read there is one, the memoirs of a dutiful daughter. So I found it quite interesting, and though it's not like the same type of me, but kind of opposite, but I like the idea of it. Like here, the writer shared her experiences about uh, the relationship between her and her father, and she was also like deeply wounded in her relationship to her father, and in turn it distorted and harmed all her other relationships. So I would say that I didn't have this kind of experiences because my father from my childhood, like all others said, he was also like one of my best friend. Not just my father, both of my parents are really quite friendly. So but I love my father a lot, I would say. So yeah, because he is kind of like introvert a bit. He doesn't share his feelings a lot. Like if he is too much happy or angry, he just keeps all inside, and he just feels shy to share all of those. But I kind of feel it. So but he always encourages me in everything, and I share everything with him as well, like a best friend. And he always like keeps secrets from me. He doesn't tell mother, something like that. Anyway, so from that passage, when I read down, the writer shared her experiences later on, like teaching her sister to read and creating a new life, and like creating something real, and also change ignorance into knowledge. So from those quotes, I can relate something from my life. When my though I don't have any sister, but when my little brother he was born, my mother got really sick, and even she was hospitalized in mental hospital as well. So there were no at that time there were no one in my family, like mostly not so much close relatives to look after my brother. So if from that in the time, like I had to take care of my brother and like teaching him, and teaching him everything, and take care of him. So I had these experiences as well, like when I was teaching him, and uh, telling him about life and all. And it felt really great, like transferring the knowledge I have to another creature that doesn't have any idea about what is life, and what this world is for and all. So yeah, that's it.
Good.
So it was really a wonderful experience for me, I would say.
Good. That's great. Lakin, got anything? Nope. Okay, Asbina, are you there? From Lakin. Okay. What about Asbina? Do you have something?
Professor. Actually, I will talk about my father, and my father is like my best friend for me. We have a really healthy relationship, and he's very supportive. He have been always supporting me and whatever I want to do. On the other side, my mother is very conservative, so my father isn't. He is totally opposite of my mother. People used to tell him that you don't have a son. Why are you putting so much effort to make your daughters educated? Where meanwhile they will just get married on their 20s and just will take care of the children and will spend rest of their lives with their husband instead of taking of yours. Then you should just have a son. But my mother and my father especially never listen to them. He always reminds me and tells me to work harder and be independent and take care of them when they grow old, and just prove these people wrong that daughters also can take care of their daughters. So he always allows me to go ahead and think whatever he wants me to do. He's a very open-minded person. Whenever I want to say something and share a thought about the thoughts I have in my mind, I always go to him. My mother is very strict, so I'm a little bit scared of her. So actually, I don't go to her. I will always go to my father. He's a very conservative kind of woman, but my father is not.
Interesting. Okay, family systems are really crazy. Okay, Fahima, do you have something? No. Okay, Rossi.
Hi. I don't have a reaction, but I have brought a song by a Cambodian American original artist. It's called Fate, and it's written by Laura Mom, and she is a successful businesswoman who is the CEO and co-founder of Baramai. And Baramai is a production company that provides protection and care and like looks after all the original artists in Cambodia. And in this song Fate, it talks about someone's fate and emphasizes planning, patience, and foreseeing, which it can be found in an Athena archetype, because when someone falls down, failure is only a lesson for them, and they need to be able to continue planning and working off of their failure in order to succeed and be able to shine and be a role model for others.
Okay, good. I do want some of you not just to bring examples you already know, you could, I want to encourage you to go online and just go Cambodian women poets, and see what comes up or something like that. So you can teach yourself about women doing stuff you didn't know before, and then you can also teach the rest of us. So, Jana Tool, do you have something?
Professor, no, not now.
Okay, Nahida? Okay, Nahida, anything there? Okay, Khadija? Oh, there's DT. Nope, how about Margia? Do you have anything, Margia? Okay, DT, what about you? Do you have anything to contribute? All right, so now I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms. And I'm gonna try to put the people who didn't say anything in with people who did. And so I want you to react to each other, right? What each other said. So I will try to somehow mix it up with the groups you were in before, but also I don't want to get a group of everybody who didn't say anything. So that wouldn't be good. So I'll try to mix them up, and I apologize. Probably you'll get into one and then all of a sudden you'll get switched to another one, but I'm trying to keep it. Oh, okay. DT wants to say it on the chat box. Okay. Did anybody say something on the chat box that, okay. So I think I'll try to do the breakout rooms right now though, if that's okay. Let's see. All right, breakout rooms. Open them. Aspina, okay. All right, let's see. Elizabeth, who contributed a lot? It's Claire. Oh. Just got to get enough. Where's Sam? Oh, that's right.
Professor, I
Yes.
think when you said you were going to go to the breakout room, I got locked out.
That's okay. Here we go. Assign you to, I'll just put you there. See what happens. You got locked out. How do I unlock you? Okay, I guess you're okay. All right. So now, Poppy May, is she one of the big contributors? Let me see. Yes. Okay. Yeah, no. Claire. Okay. See. Oh boy. Yeah, she's a big contributor, right? She doesn't have to be in with, oops. Those two. Oh, I think Madeline is rocked. Okay. All right, Elizabeth, I'm moving you. is okay. Okay. Oh my gosh, they've got all of them. Okay, Rosie, I'm going to move you to number 3. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, right. Poppy, Jerry. Bacon. Sorry. Where is Undari? I'll see Fahima. Okay, so Rossi's got it. She can be a leader. Lincoln, that's Bina. Okay. Bina had an example, and Lincoln had an example. Hi, Rossi. I switched you.
I actually joined from 2 devices, so that's why my phone one was like, it was keep reconnecting, so I tried on my computer now, and so that's why I'm in the group. I'm in breakout 3.
Yeah, I moved you because was a bunch of talkers in number 2, and there were a bunch of non-talkers in 3, and I thought, well, Rossi, she could talk. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay. I'm back in now. I'll leave from my computer.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right, Claire. Madeline. Okay, yeah, Rossi, Poppy, Claire. Let's see, is Fahima there? I think so. Yeah, she's here. Rook 9. Okay, she's not here. Tori is not here. Okay, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I can't think of 2 things at once. Let me go back to, okay. All right. All right, so can everybody see this and hear me?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, so basically, my students have way more obstacles than I had, and I admire them and all the stories they tell. So I don't feel sorry for myself at all. I know I'm privileged, but I did feel that birdcage effect because of the way each individual wire didn't seem like such a big deal, but when you put them all together, that was the problem. All right, so there are those relationship issues, but what I wanted to get to was toward the end. The way women wound each other. So if you think of examples of that in your life, Margaret Thatcher was a ruler of Britain who was really cruel she was heartless. She, cut programs. They had homelessness for the first time. Anyway, there are some quotes here about, to me, it's kind of shocking how women defend patriarchy. This one, Margaret Mitchell idealized slavery in the South, and that was really unhealthy. Yeah, when Betty Friedan says women could have equality, it's just all their own. The only constraint is their own choice. That was just not fair. Anyway, so let's see. The bias. All right, so what I want you to think about also is think about the classes that you've taken at AUW or that you're taking right now. What is the content of the class? And what is the process, the intellectual process by which you learn, right? So some of that science and math, it's just, is it gendered or not? Well, when you see that it's a kind of detached reasoning, it's okay. I mean, you don't want to resist it, but it's not going to help you deal with culture. And so you can have really good mathematicians, really good scientists who are also really sexist or really in denial about sexism because they don't understand culture. They're too detached. Then you can think about your courses that are inherently related to culture, like history, literature. I think the core courses are about culture and they're about patriarchy, a lot of them. So I think a lot of you do get classes that bring this into mind more than at a lot of other schools. So you can think about that. And then you can think about you might be reading about patriarchy, but you're using a kind of disembodied mind sort of way of analyzing it. So you can think about that. Do you think the educational system is biased? And in what ways? Is it or isn't it? And AUW really is different. I'm totally open to whatever you want to say because it's just something for you to reflect on. I think this is interesting because this woman is a contemplative type. I've spent time actually in this retreat center where she also spent time. She admires activism completely, but she says, I just am not attracted to that kind of work, right? I'm not drawn to it. That was a big problem for me. I'm a contemplative and I felt so guilty that I wasn't good at all this activism that I talked about in that chapter. But anyway, we each have to find our own path, that's all. And women need to make sure not to criticize other women and also that the contemplative life is not inferior to the activist life, right? In America, especially, activism, business, organizing, starting a new, that's kind of valued a lot more than thinking, reflecting, standing back. So you can think about that a little bit. This one is about how racism hurts everybody. And in this class, I wanted to point out that colonialism hurts everybody because it gives white people a very false idea of their superiority, and it gives non-white people a very false idea of their inferiority. And again, it's this hyper rationalistic model of the Western Enlightenment that was considered more advanced. And that's why Westerners were superior and Western culture. And then they imposed it on to colonial society, to non-Western societies. And they intimidated these people. But actually the pursuit of wisdom is what those cultures were based on. And so I'm bringing back the wisdom traditions, except in a non-sexist form. And so wisdom is important, which also means that Western culture is not the epitome. And so we have crippled, right? Both Westerners and non-Westerners are crippled by this worship of the God of reason without values, right? You can be smart in science and math and technology and be a real wicked person. Okay, this one is about love, right, is not fundamentally a sweet feeling. So if all the goddesses are really passions, then that's true. This course just takes that steps further. Let's see. Oh, and then some people write poems not because they think it'll change the world, but it changes the way we think and feel. It changes our character. And that's why my book is a tribute to all the women who did create a new culture in my era, because I needed to read all of it. I needed to keep reading it and keep reading it until I got in the back of my mind this whole picture of a woman's culture that my society just does not have. You have to be looking for it, or you have to keep reminding yourself. And people around you will project onto you, and you know that. They'll look at you like you're not a good person because you're going to college, right? And they just project stuff onto you that isn't true and isn't fair, and they aren't always conscious of it. But that's why we need poetry and essays. We need every kind of aspect of culture together to form a new way of living. Let's see, theater. This is important because at AUW, they do have a theater is important. I think you're required to take some either music, some performance art, I think. And Brock, which is the Bangladeshi big nonprofit, though I think it's the biggest in the world, they've had this tradition of community theater as a way to raise consciousness of the people in the community. And I was reading about that. I actually kind of wrote a draft for an article about that, because for the Greeks, theater was really important for getting people to think critically, to rethink blind patriotism, and to rethink their sexism also, which we'll get into later on. But theater is an important way to awaken people from sexism and racism and all sorts of other toxic diseases of the soul. This one is really good. In touring a show on women's roles, I've discovered I can enjoy it only if it succeeds artistically, and that is portray with understanding as many different kinds of women as possible, right? Audience will not only have some understanding of women, they will have helped create a moment in which a human being's experience has become art. That's really important. It's important for more than just a few kinds of women and a limited few kinds of female experience, to be the subject of art. I really agree with that, and I hope you understand why, at least why I agree with it, whether or not you agree with it. Art, let's see. Art, when women artists seriously decide to assume responsibility for making history, for making whatever they agree good art is, instead of waiting to be recognized for their achievements, then they will assure themselves, okay? So I'm convinced that a book with your excerpts in it is going to be great art, right? I'm not waiting for some validation from some guy, okay? I really think what you say and how we can put it all together and make this piece of women's history and women's art is really a big contribution to global culture. And then she says that, right? In reshaping my feminism, I realized my painting has a political dimension. Just speaking out, just describing the daily ways of your life is political. So even when we talk about if you have a conflict with your mother, just to bring it up, to just flush it out, to just read about, okay, so each generation should get better. So in your generation, you were able to get this far, but you couldn't get all the way. But at least we can describe all these ways that fathers support their daughters or they cripple their daughters, mothers support them. You know, it's just moving. There's this constant motion. And more young women are being encouraged. I'm sure it's more and more the case that it isn't, you don't pit the father against the mother and the daughter. So I think people are becoming more self-consciously aware and things are getting better. So I just want us to be a part of it. Also, once we get the book, I think when you go back to campus, so in all of you, including me, are now living in these cultural settings that are not giving you the kind of positive feedback that you get on campus. The same with Lion. At Lion is not, you have to, women at Lion have to find their subgroups because it's I would say the atmosphere is dominantly male, but that's my opinion. Anyway, but at AUW, there is this culture and we're all separated from it now, but we have to try to keep remembering that and generating some more history. When we get back on campus, then we have to, you know, just vow to always support each other. If each of you sort of goes in through your mind what kind of archetype you are, most of you probably are Artemis or Athena, but not all of you. You don't have to be that way, right? So that's important, and it's important that you support each other. And, oh yeah, when you take psychology class or sociology, you could check back at the comments made on this chapter and see if, I think that because AUW hires women that are aware of sexism, I think that when you take psychology, the woman teaching it and the books you read will show that she has figured it out. She consciously makes the discipline less sexist. So that would be interesting for you to think about. And so let's see, I did want to tell you a couple stories, right? So my oldest daughter is definitely an Athena. And she was before she was born. I can tell you, she was just beaten to get out of that womb, you know? And so I remember thinking, right? My mother told me that I was always a quiet kid. And my father was extremely extroverted. Everybody that knows him, he is the most extroverted person they ever met. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have a kid that's like my dad. And even though it was hard to be, his kid for me because I'm introverted, it was so difficult. People used to always say to me, well, when he died, there were like 3,000 people that either sent a card or came to the memorial service. There were like 900 people. So that's how, I mean, everybody knew my dad, right? So people used to say, oh, I love your dad. He's so great. And I would want to say, well, why don't you say hello to him for me? We never see him. He's never home. And so the thing about that was that I go, okay, now I'm going to have a kid like that. And I want to make sure that she likes being who she is, right? So I'm not like her. Her dad isn't like her, but I want to make sure she really affirms who she is. And so I did ask her a few months ago, you know, if she ever felt like, oh, I have such space cadets for parents, I have to do everything. Or did she ever feel bad just for having such a different personality? And she said, no, I never felt that way. So that was, you know, I thought about that a lot. But it's really funny when they start having their own kids, okay? Because her oldest son is very much like her. And when he was in 3rd grade, he said, you know what? My mom is really organized. I said, she sure is. You sure got it, buddy. So that's always fun, you know, to watch this stuff happen. When she was in 6th grade, she said to me, you know what? Grandpa Beck doesn't listen. I'm like, oh, tell me about it. You know, he didn't listen to me. And that it was, you know, it was painful for me that he wanted to change the world. But I said to her, but that's okay. There's just certain kinds of people like that. And the world needs those kind of people. I didn't tell her about my own life. And so a little while later, she comes to me, she says, you know what? I think I'm getting to be just like Grandpa Beck. And I said, that's okay, Rachel. You really are just like Grandpa Beck, you know? So what I'm hoping for you and your generation is that now you're far enough along in the evolution of culture that the women in your extended families will be able to go out there and develop their own talents and find out who they are, which is just in America, we were maybe a generation ahead, only because we exploited, you know, only because of colonialism and the destruction of environment, not because we're more virtuous or anything, but we did, you know, there was more opportunity and the value of individuality. But anyway, so someday, you know, everybody in the family will be able to be themselves. And then you'll have all these kinds of dynamics around. And just so you know that it is, kids are just born this way and there isn't a lot they can do about it. So, so parents just need to nurture it. And you can think about whether your parents nurtured. I mean, there is that crippling that occurs when women are not supposed to get educated or they're supposed to stay home or whatever. But even when women are trying to find out who they are, there's just a lot of, it's just very complicated. So yeah, my oldest daughter is definitely Athena and my son is more like me. And I think he's internalized a level of perfectionism that's somewhat worrisome to me because I was like that. So I hope he can balance that out. And I do talk to him about it once in a while. My oldest daughter, I don't know, she is in Washington, D.C. running the world. Yeah, she's great. She worked for the Department of Labor on international economic development projects. I may have told you that. I have a little video where she gave a speech at my school. She was the convocation speaker about your government at work, about what her department did. Now she works for the Rainforest Alliance on slave labor issues. She tries to make sure, you know, that the products that the Rainforest Alliance makes doesn't use slave labor. They have decent conditions of work. They have decent salaries. They have all that sort of basic amenities. And then my son runs an inner city charter school for Somali and Ethiopian refugees, some African Americans, some white kids. And that's a tough job. But he wants it to be a nurturing community, and he's a very nurturing kind of guy. But he also just takes everything so seriously. He gets up at 4 a.m. He just, he's wearing himself out. So I worry about that. And I worry that he has this internalized mother in him. And so I have to be careful about that. And then my youngest one is, that's another story. She's very complicated because she's had to do a whole lot of different things in life. Sort of like, I can't remember the name of the woman who had to take care of her little brother. But actually my oldest daughter used to have, she used to play school with her little brother and sister. And she would have 6 different subjects that they'd study together. You know, they'd have math, and they'd have social studies, and they'd have art, and they'd have physical education. And she made these fun worksheets for my youngest daughter, basically taught her how to read. But those worksheets were incredibly complicated. So anyway, those are mommy stories, but they just let you know that, yeah, this is really about life. So next time we're going to do Aphrodite, and I hope that you really are surprised by the image of Aphrodite. I'm excited to see what you think. And it's so different, and it should make you so aware of how perverted women's passions are under patriarchy, and how we really have to change it. And so the woman is the vision carrier. You know how men have their muse, this woman that inspires them to create? Well, how come women don't have women as vision carriers, right? Why aren't men ever vision carriers? I mean, it gets associated with sexual attraction and with heterosexual sex. So it really gets perverted. And so you can do Aphrodite. And I think we'll organize it the way we did today. And then when you do your post, you can tell me, would you rather do it with 2 breakout groups, or would you like it better with 1 breakout group? And we might end up having just 1 round of student reactions and breakout groups, because so far a number of students have not participated. No, they passed. If everybody was here and everybody participated, I'm not quite sure we could get through 2 rounds, but I will take feedback at the end of this week. Now, are there any questions? And then the rest of you can go in, you know, a minute or 2 is the end of the class. So if anybody has questions, I will be here as long as you need me to be here.
No, Professor, not yet.
Okay. I will have office hours tomorrow at the same time.
Okay, Professor.
Okay, Poppy, I'm so glad to have connected with you, and we'll get there.
Hey, Dr. Beck.
Yep.
Do you mind if me and Liz talk to you for a second?
Sure, just a sec. I'm going to stop the recording.